information, self-help, education, and sometimes pure entertainment. Want to grow with us on this journey and support these up and coming authors? Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode. I'm your host, Stephanie Outen, the literary doula. Are you ready for the show? Let's do this. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. I am so excited to be back for another episode of Storytime with Stephanie. And tonight I have another dynamic, amazing author that I want to share with you. Joanna Avin is the owner of HeartWork Precision, certified in emotional intelligence by High Performing Systems, and has trained thousands of people over the years in emotional intelligence. She has directly seen the impact of HeartWork by being a student of it first. In every challenge participants are encouraged to complete, Joanna has done herself. She speaks and writes from her knowledge, wisdom, and results of doing the work. Her hope is that others can benefit from her testimony and create their own soul healing. Joanna is the author of HeartWork of the Soul. Joanna, are you with us?
Yes, I am. I am so happy to be here with you, Stephanie.
Hello, welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you. Listen. It's a pleasure. Anytime I can get, on any platform and really talk about the importance of the work that I have been called to, it is a win-win situation every time.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about HeartWork of the Soul, your training guide to emotional wellness. How did this come about?
So I've been doing emotional intelligence work for the last 15 years. And in my classrooms, I would train. This is about a 6 to 8 hour course in my classrooms. And, it impacted so many people on a personal level. And they just was floored. And they were saying, man, I wish I had this information before I had kids. I wish I had this information before I got married. I wish I had this information before I chose my career. And before some of the long-term decisions that people made, they just wish they had leveraged this information prior. And so it was really laid on my heart about 2 years ago to go ahead and take what I trained in the classroom environment and put it in a book form. And so I thought it was going to be kind of an easy process. I'm just going to record one of my classes, transcript, book is
Not so easy.
no, not at all. But and it was because God was doing something different with me with this book than what I even offered in my trainings. And as I was writing, and I'm just going to be completely transparent. As I was writing the book, the Holy Spirit was giving me so much information. I would literally say, okay, Holy Spirit, I don't even know what I just wrote. Can you tell me what I just wrote there? Because I don't even know what I just said there. And that's how I knew it was going to be such a blessing because it was done in the time in which He wanted it to be completed because of a lot of the different stressors that people are going through post-pandemic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now how did you come up with the title HeartWork of the Soul? Because sometimes people will not connect the two. They're thinking, oh, well, it's about soul work, but you named it HeartWork of the Soul for a purpose. So tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So we are a three-part being, spirit, soul, and body, right? And with our soul is the contributor, is the dictator of reality of our earth existence, right? And so our soul really drives home everything that we want to accomplish is done through our soul. And so in the soul realm, right, you're in your soul, there's a lot of different rooms. As you read the book, there's a lot of different rooms in your soul. It's your imagination, your will, your emotions, right? And so hard work falls into the soul being. And so, because I'm specifically talking about emotions, I needed to make that distinction that this, I'm not going to talk about the entire soul. I am going to really focus on one of the rooms within the soul.
Hmm. Love that. And that room being the heart.
Yes, that room being the heart. Absolutely.
I love that. I love that. Okay. So, as you said in your bio, you walk through so much of this yourself. Like everything that you are teaching, it's because you had to walk through it yourself. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that maybe you were encountering that helped you to recognize, I need to do a little bit of heart work on my soul because there's some things that I'm experiencing or some triggers that might be coming up. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you were walking through to be able to write some of the things that you've shared.
I realized as I was writing the book, and this is why I paused the book for about 6 to 8 months, and it was just more soul work had to be done as I look back at 2020, at 22 Vision later. But one of the specific things that I was challenged to do, amongst a lot of other things, but one specific one, my father passed away when I was about 6, 7 years old. I didn't realize the impact of the death of my father in some of my decision making, right? So I dealt with some anger, I dealt with rejection a lot, low self esteem, being in toxic relationships and things of that nature. And I didn't realize a lot of them were symptoms of abandonment, right? And
Mhm.
so one of the things that was the Holy Spirit brought in my heart was there is some things that you need to clean up. There's some things that you have to allow me to heal. And the letter, as you a lot of people will read in my book, this is a strategy that was given to me, right, through the Holy Spirit. I didn't know, I didn't go to school for psychology. I just want to let me make sure I put this out there. I am
Look,
not a clinical therapist or psychologist. Let me make sure. And I didn't stay in a Holiday Inn last night for me to know that either. So I'm just,
because I was going to ask you, honestly, I was like, either she's a psychologist, she's a therapist, like, I mean, because you touch on so many things related to the psyche, the brain, like, I would really think that you were a psychologist and you studied this, but Holy Spirit literally downloaded the field of psychology to you so
the
that you were
Holy
able
Spirit will
to write
guide you
this.
into all truth. Yes, He will. Won't He do it? Yeah.
Oh, yes, he will.
But yeah, so He just said, there's some things that you got to clean up. And I said, okay. He said, you have to write a letter to your father.
Yeah.
And I said, whoa, yeah, this is tough. And just doing the work, I was able to, and I said, who should I read it to? And you know, a few weeks later, God really showed me exactly who I would read the letter to, and Stephanie, I will never forget the day that I read the letter. I met a minister, a friend of mine, at a park. And he said, I want you to bring up a picture of your father as you read the letter. And I gotta tell you, like, as I began to read the letter, every emotion that was trapped in my soul because of denial
Yeah.
or because of lack of awareness, it just bubbled up to the surface. And I was able to pour my heart out and pour those emotions out. And it felt like there was just 50-pound weight that was just lifted off of my shoulders. I cried. I don't even remember if I've ever cried that much in my life. When my father died, I was 7, so I don't even truly remember mourning. You
Yeah.
7 years old. How do you mourn, right? And so, because I had to be a student of the work as well, I was able to, really glean from the benefits of it. And what it did was it created a window of grace.
Mm.
this window of grace, before I didn't see the red flags when I used to make certain decisions that were toxic.
Mm-hmm.
But after I did the letter, there was a window of grace that opened up where it allowed me to say, are you sure you want to go this way? Or do
Yeah.
you want to go this way? Where before I would have automatically gone in that way, but there's a window of grace that opened up where now I could choose
Hmm.
to operate in a healthier state of mind. And I'm telling you, it has been one of the most rewarding experiences that I continue to learn and grow from on this journey.
I love that. I love that. And I saw a comment. Renee said that writing letters to those people, it literally shifted and transformed some things for her. And I fully understand because I had to write a letter to my father too. You know,
Wow.
I didn't grow up with my father.
Yeah.
And when I was 30, I believe it was, I wrote a letter. He had passed away. And
Wow.
I decided, you know what? I need to write this letter to clear all those things that I wanted to say to him, but never had the chance to say to him,
Absolutely.
and be able to clear my soul
Yeah.
because just like you, I dealt with abandonment, rejection, all kinds of toxic behaviors, right? And these patterns that kept showing up in my life, in relationships, and the way that I was communicating with people. And
Wow.
being able to write that letter freed me from those things that, I dealt with because of not having that relationship with him. So I completely understand your perspective on that. And I thank Renee even for her comment. So now let's dive in a little bit more deeply.
Yes, for sure.
HeartWork of the soul. As you can see, I take notes and I have my little stickies. And so we'll
I
go through some
appreciate
things.
that.
And what I always reiterate to the audience is I try not to give away the book because I want you all to buy the book, right? That's the whole purpose of
Yeah.
having authors come on and share their stories, is so that you can hear it, you can get the nuggets that you need, right? What you need to glean from. I'm going to say Riel says I had to write a letter to my father as well. Definitely was hard, but a breakthrough came. Absolutely. Those breakthroughs will come from those
Yes,
letters.
they
I'm telling
will.
you.
Yes, yes, they will.
But I want you all to purchase these books, support these authors. Many of these authors are independent authors, right? And it's my desire to see independent authors to thrive. I want
Yeah,
us to be able to have a dominating place in the literary world. And so that's the purpose of Storytime with Stephanie, is to have these authors come on. This is a platform for them to share, for you all to learn something new, and for you all to support them. Buy the book.
thank you.
Okay. So we're going to talk about some nuggets, and we also will share the links to where they can purchase your book as well as how they can contact you. So let's talk a little bit about, you had something in your introduction that like struck me. It said many parents were simply using verbiage their parents, aunts, uncles, or other family members used with them. And those are things like fix your face or I'll give you something to cry about. Be strong, right? Kids are to be seen and not heard. We've all grown up hearing that stuff right there. Right?
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
most time it's just been passed down and passed down and passed down. And no one says, hey, it's time to break this cycle. Stop saying these things, right? We're just going to continue on. But you said, my goal is to help you begin to learn some new emotional practices
Yeah.
that will forever change the way you interact with your family and others. And that really struck me.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, emotional practices.
Right.
Because what we fail to realize so often is that it is our emotions that often guide us,
Absolutely.
lead the conversations, rather than us having that self-awareness and the self-regulation, which you'll talk about, as it relates to emotional intelligence. But our upbringing, our culture is really what has conditioned us to
Absolutely.
say these things and be this way. So let's talk a little bit about how those cultural dynamics come into play,
Yeah.
and then lead us into emotional intelligence.
So uh, there is a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. right? And of course, the conscious mind is the things that appeal to your senses, what you see, feel, touch, taste, all of those great things, what you are fully aware of. And then we have the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is your programming, and that programming began from inception. And for women, and I believe they call that hypergenetics. I'm not sure about the name, but it can even start in your grandmother's womb when your mother was carrying you. And I'm going to try not to go too deep with that, but there are some things that are passed down even through the bloodline. So when you understand that there are some things that have already been programmed in your mind, and that's why it strikes a chord with me anytime I hear someone say, "Oh, my daughter's only 2 years old. My son is only 1 year old. I can work. I can do this. It's not a big deal." They don't get it. It's they don't know what's going on. Oh my gosh, these are the most, psychologists said, this is the most formative years of a
Yes.
child's life is the first 5 years. They
Mhm.
are being, their subconscious mind is being downloaded with so much information on how to interact with you. Wait, when mommy makes that face, she starts to yell. So maybe I should go in the other room. When dad raises his hand, is that how we're supposed to hit mommy? What should I raise my hand at my brother and sister? So there are some thought patterns that are being created from a very early age, and we begin to build these defense systems, mechanisms, or these coping mechanisms. I'm going to go run in my room because when I hear daddy comes in, he starts screaming. And so now all of a sudden, because you never resolve some of those childhood related things, when your husband raises their voice, you're ready to go isolate.
Yes.
And that's why it's just so important that we understand the power that our emotions have in our subconscious minds, because it is dictating. So research has said over 90% of the decisions that we make is based from our subconscious mind. And
Mm.
so if we can begin to recreate patterns, right, consciously, because it has to go into our subconscious mind. When we can begin to recreate patterns, healthy patterns that can flow into our subconscious mind, then we are completely unstoppable. And
Mm.
that takes a certain skill set for that to happen.
Yes. And that skill set is something that you have to consistently work on. It's not something that happens overnight, right?
Absolutely.
It is truly work. And sometimes people don't want to do the work. I referenced this the other day to someone that we live in a microwave society and everyone wants everything so quickly. And even within our own souls and the work that we have to do, we want to just go to sleep and wake up and miraculously be changed. Now, God can do anything, so He can do that if He so chooses, but He also desires for us to go through the process. And that's literally what your book is. It's a process
It is.
that walks you through the stages of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to read the definition of emotional intelligence here from your book. Emotional intelligence, or EI, is the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, as well as recognize and influence the emotions of those around you. Now, there's also emotional quotient,
Yeah.
EQ, reflects the level of a person's emotional intelligence, often as represented by a score in a standardized test.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about emotional intelligence, especially from the perspective that you train from. So you're training predominantly in corporations, correct?
Yes. And I train predominantly in corporations, but my hope is really to bring this. That's why I'm so grateful, Stephanie, for this time, because it is my hope. I'm like, why are leaders getting only this information?
Yes.
The regular common folk, like, you know what I mean? Like, you
Mhm.
need to be access, you need to gain access to this information so that way you can make the necessary changes that these leaders already understand and put into practice and make that investment. And it's like everyone else needs to get on board with it. I
Yeah.
kind of felt like I'm only doing leaders. Like, I need to just
Right.
throw some things out on Facebook and Instagram so people are aware that there are some emotional competencies that can truly help you change destructive patterns,
Yes.
really create self efficacy, self belief, and really get you stuck out of these toxic decisions. And
Yeah.
there's some emotional competencies that can help with that.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some of those. And actually, before we go into that, so with you doing the training in the corporations that you go into, and so if anyone works for an organization that you realize emotional intelligence is lacking, you all need to set Joanna up
Yes.
with the HR department so that she can come in and be able to do some of this training within these corporations because it is necessary. And I come from a human resources background, so I fully understand this whole process of EI. And yeah, there are some corporations that desperately need you to
Yes.
come in and, like you said, not just for the leaders, but for the employees as well, because everyone needs to understand emotional intelligence. Everyone needs to understand self-awareness and self-regulation. So let's talk about some of those five basic areas that we need to know about when it comes to emotional intelligence.
Okay.
So, self-awareness. How do you define self-awareness?
It is, my mom says, when you know better, you do better.
Yep. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. When you know better, you do better.
But
That's a
because
self-aware person.
it really is. It really is. And the challenge is that a lot of the times we have made concessions for our bad behavior.
Ooh, say that again.
We don't want to do the work
Mm,
because we have made concessions for our bad behavior.
my God.
Oh, well, my mama told me that I need to just say what's on my mind. Well, my daddy told me that this is how I need to carry. My auntie told me there's no excuse, and this is why we have to be intentional about disrupting those repetitive patterns that try to keep us in this stuck state. And
Mm,
when you are not aware of something, something that I talk about in the book, it's like walking around with spinach in your teeth that everyone else can see
mm,
but you. And no one wants to be that person. And that's why self awareness is so important because you have to know how you are presenting yourself to the rest of the world.
yeah, that story. I love that story when I read it because I'm like, all these people sat there, right? And here's this person. You're like, like
Right.
cleaning out all your teeth. You don't feel it. Still, no one even said anything. But it's not until you go and take a look in the mirror. That's what self-awareness is. It's, I gotta get in the front of the mirror and I gotta see this stuck spinach for myself. And I have to do
Absolutely.
something about it. And it might take dental floss, a toothpick, my fingernail, rinsing out my mouth, Listerine, whatever. It's gonna take some work, but I have to do it in order to get back to a right state, right?
Absolutely. Michael Jackson said, I'm starting with the man in the mirror.
Ooh,
I'm telling him to make a change, and no message could
mm,
have been any clearer. If you want to make a world a
yes,
better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. And that's
yes.
what self awareness is all about.
Yes, it's a process. That's right, Renee. It's a process. It's a
Yeah.
process. So once you get to that state of being self-aware, and it does take time, right? Especially depending on how old you are, depending on the upbringing that you've had, depending on your social circles, the environments that you're in, it could take quite some time to fully become self-aware, right? But what are some of the I would say things that a person can do to be able to get to a point of self-awareness, even at its most basic level.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you said at its basic level, because self-awareness is a journey. And I love, like, people really trip me out. They're like, I'm self-aware. And I'm like, okay, let me ask your husband that. Let me ask your wife that. Let me ask your children that, because they've been telling you the same thing for the last 30 years, and you've been saying you're gonna work on it, but nothing has changed.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, it is a journey, because, Stephanie, we are continually growing.
Yes.
And so, because I'm not the same person that I was a year ago, that means that I have to become aware of the new person that I've even grown into. And so it is a continual journey. Gosh, I can't remember her name right now, but I believe it was Brene Brown. She did a study on self awareness
Yes.
in a Forbes online article. And one of the things that she was saying is that over 90% of people say that they are self aware. But
Mhm.
once she put them through the assessment of talking to their friend, talking to their coworker, talking to their family, out of that 90% people that said that they were aware, only 10 to 15% of people truly were aware. And
Ooh.
so that's one of the challenges, is that a lot of us, sometimes we can get so prideful, because just
Mhm.
because you may be aware in one area, it doesn't mean you're aware in all areas.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so we just got to be patient with ourselves as we
Mhm.
grow. And if we have been able to, really get our reins in one area, that means it's time for us to begin exploring other areas.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And seeking out help.
Yes.
Seeking out help, because sometimes you can't do these things alone. You need to be able to have someone else kind of put the mirror in your face and help you, right? And so I'm always going to tell people therapy is important. Soul work, seeing a soul work practitioner is important, because you need someone to help you through this process, especially if you don't know how to do it on your own, right? At least have someone that can
Yeah,
help you take the
absolutely.
first step so that you can then, take the rest of the steps yourself.
No, absolutely. One of the things that I challenge, even in my classrooms, one of the first assignments that I give in self awareness is go to three different people and ask them, what are your strengths, and
Mm.
what are the areas that you need to work on. And write down, before you even get the feedback, write down what you think about yourself. And then once you go to those three different people, find out what aligns and what doesn't align,
Yeah.
right? And then that will allow you to see some of the blind spots. If three people say you don't listen, you want to get your way, you selfish, well, guess what? All of that kind of goes into you being stubborn, right? Which you are, right?
Yes.
But we make concessions for it, right? And so I challenge people to take a report card, take an inventory
Mm.
of your characteristics and your opportunities every year, because you
Yes.
should be growing emotionally every year.
That's so good. That's so good. Ooh. Okay. Now let's talk about self-regulation. Self-regulation. This is also something that people don't always have the ability to do, is
Yeah,
self-regulate. So I'll define it here from your book. Self-regulation, the second pillar of EI for your home is the reason it says in your home for your home is because Joanna gives this analogy of building a house.
yeah,
Okay. And so these are the pillars in which you need to be able to build a strong foundation in your house. So
okay,
self regulation, the second pillar of EI for your home, is the ability to manage disruptive emotions and impulses and to think before you react. I'm guilty. I ain't always have self regulation. Like, I would pop off at the mouth. I would allow my anger, unresolved issues to speak for me,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Rather than be able to kind of, whew, let me process this thing. Let me think it through before I actually open my mouth and say something. So
yeah,
self-regulation was a big issue for me until I began to identify the root of where it was coming from. And when I was able to identify the root and cut that thing off at the root and be able to do the soul work and the deliverance and the healing, that's when I realized, whew, I can now self-regulate. And I don't have to have somebody else say, Stephanie, calm down. Come down from 10,000.
Absolutely.
So why is it that so many people from your research and from your training that you've seen, why is it so many people have such a difficult time self-regulating?
I think a lot of people don't want to take the time to sit with themselves
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people, if they actually took the time to sit with themselves, they may not like the person who they discover.
Yeah.
And so they make themselves busy. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this because it's a distraction from being able to live in the reality of the world that you created.
Oh God. That hit. Joanna, girl, that hit. The world
because we are a product of the decisions that we make and the decisions that we don't make, and a lot of the decisions that we don't make have a lot of negative lingering impacts than the decisions that we do make. And I think a lot of people they say, "Oh, I can control myself." See, they misconstrue self-control and self-regulation, and they say, "Okay, well, you yelled at me. I didn't yell at you back, so I regulated myself." No, that's self-control, right?
Yes.
But self-regulation says there's something when you started speaking about this topic, I noticed that immediately my blood pressure went up. Immediately, heat came all over my body. Immediately, I was gritting through my teeth. And you got to say, okay, wait a minute. Even before I respond in this, note to self, I need to try to understand what was driving that emotion to that level, because it has nothing to do with the other person. It has everything to do with me. And a lot of the times we expect for people to change instead of us making the change. We're the one that has these detonators in our soul, and we want other people to walk easily over these landmines, and these people is like, look, I don't know what you got going on in you. Don't push my buttons. Just don't push my buttons. And I'm like, I didn't even know that was a button. What is going on? And so it's just so important that we take the time to sit with ourselves and say, man, my blood pressure went up. Maybe there is something there. And let me stop pointing my finger and playing victim, Stephanie. Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah. Ooh. That victim mentality will literally be the death of so many people. It'd be the death.
It is the death. It is so easy to point the finger and say, you did it and especially I get this when I speak to young adults. Well, my mom should have did this, or my dad should have did this, and they should have treated me better, and they should have did this. And I'm like, are you going to sit in that position, or are you going to say no matter what? Because we are the driving force. Emotions is not good or bad.
That's
you
right.
need fear, or you will kill yourself. You go run off. So there has to be balance. But what makes emotion turn out to be negative or positive is the power that you put behind it, right? And so I think a lot of people have to sit with themselves, and before you feel like you wouldn't explode if you already have resolved some of those issues within. So stop blaming other people, and once again, look at the man in the mirror.
Ooh. And each of these pillars, they all feed into each other.
Absolutely.
Right? Mm-hmm. To be able to self-regulate, you need to be self-aware.
Yes.
Right? Absolutely. Were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to know, just if you don't know better, you can't do better.
Exactly. So motivation and discipline. Yeah, this is this is always an interesting one for people, because sometimes people look for others to motivate them, right? The third pillar of EI for your home includes motivation and discipline. Motivation is defined as a general willingness or desire of someone to do something. And discipline is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior. And you talk about how both are needed. Both
Yes.
are needed in order to achieve different outcomes, better actions, and behaviors. So, in the training that you do in corporate and in other places where you have shared the training about EI, what have you learned or what have people shared with you in regards to being able to self motivate? Has it been challenging for most people to self motivate? Are they looking for other people to motivate them, especially in the workplace? What has been shared with you?
I think one of the toughest areas when I talk about motivation is a lot of people suffer from procrastination.
Mhm.
I'll get to it later. That whole
Yeah, yeah.
I'll get to it later
Mhm.
is the thief of our dreams. Ah,
Yeah,
it is the thief of our destinies. It is the thief of our purpose. It is comes in and it just like literally sucks the very life. My
woo.
God, like
Renee said, listen, listen, okay? Oh God. Look, I have a saying. Procrastination leads to stagnation. Like
yes,
when you procrastinate, you literally just become stuck. And if you know
yes.
anything about stagnation, even in your body, how your blood can stagnate and it's just stuck,
Ah,
that's what procrastination does. It leads to stagnation. You just don't get anything done. Renee said, I married procrastination. Lord Jesus. Girl, I hope you divorce it before this show is over.
I know that's right. I know that's right because procrastination is so tough because it has this alluring draw from past experience that says, but eventually I get to it.
Mm, wow.
So there's this draw that says you can procrastinate because eventually you'll get to it.
Mm,
Eventually you did it before, so you'll get to it, right?
yeah.
But what it doesn't keep track of is all of the times that you said you were going to get to it and you didn't.
Yeah. Oh,
All of those times, yes.
that right there was so good. And for those who will listen on the replay, listen on the audio version, Renee, we're glad to report that Renee says she did divorce. She did divorce procrastination. So congratulations, girl. We
Yes.
applaud you for divorcing procrastination. And we want everybody who procrastinates to get an immediate divorce.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
it will literally lead you to staying stuck for so much of your life. And I love what you just said. And I cannot say it as eloquently as you just said, but basically how with procrastination it and you don't get that reminder like, oh, but sometimes I didn't get this done, right? But you think, oh well, I got to it, it might have been 2 months later, I still did it, but it doesn't remind you of those times when you didn't get it done at all. And
Right.
how many times we avoid or we miss purpose because
Yes.
we procrastinated,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
because it doesn't account the opportunities that you would have gotten if you were in the right position, right at the right time.
Yeah.
And so that's what it doesn't account for. And that's why it is so important. One of the things that I talk about in motivation is ensuring that you have an accountability partner.
Yes.
An
Yes.
accountability partner research has said that you will accomplish 60%, only 6% if you do it by yourself. Do you know research has said that you only accomplish about 6% of your goals?
Oh my gosh.
Six, 6%. And I'm like, what? This can't be. right? But when you have an accountability partner, you will accomplish 60% of your goals. It is unreal. And
My
so one
God.
of the things that I want to put out there is, if you truly want to overcome procrastination, first you got to get to the root, because there has to be awareness there. This is how we're talking about it flows on each other. You got to get to the root. What is at the root of
Yeah.
I'll get to it later? What
Ooh.
was the first experience where you begin saying, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it. Did you see your mother do it, your father do it, your aunt do it? Where did you start making the concessions of doing it? And then now, once you have that awareness, now you need to regulate. And
Mm.
once you begin the regulation process, now you got to put the disciplines in place for you to be consistent with with those conscious decisions, so it can flow into your subconscious mind, therefore creating a new pattern of a healthier way of life in accomplishing your goals.
Yes. That discipline thing is key, and it's so challenging. Discipline can be so challenging because it makes you feel almost this sense of confinement, right?
Yeah,
So many people just want to be free to do things kind of when they want to, but discipline is literally obedience.
it
It
is.
really is. And you say discipline is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior. It is about obedience.
It's
And when
true.
you're undisciplined, you are being disobedient,
Yes, you are. You
right?
are definitely being to yourself.
Ugh. Isn't
That's
it?
the
Oh,
thing. It's like
look, you just giving me all these chills. Look, and I saw the comment. Chris had a comment earlier that said they're still in court. So they fighting through that whole procrastination thing. It's like, who's gonna get custody?
I love it.
Oh god, these comments are cracking me up. I can see them like coming off on the
Yes.
side.
Yeah.
But that right there, disobedient to yourself. Wow.
Yeah.
When you think of it, because so many times we think about being disobedient to God, and that's the most painful place to be in. To add to that, being disobedient to yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
like that makes you feel that's so deflating.
It is
And
very dissuasive.
how does someone get to a place like what would be a strategy to help someone develop a level of discipline when they've been undisciplined for all their lives? Like I'll give an example, someone who essentially has been a young person who's essentially been undisciplined, uncooperative most of their childhood and into teen life, and their
Yeah.
parents said, you just gonna go to the military to get you some discipline, right?
Yeah.
That's like instant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instant discipline. But what are some of the things again that someone can do from a baby steps perspective to develop a level of discipline?
I think it's so important as a parent. I have four kids, and my youngest is now 17. But kids, teenagers, from very small, you have to create boundaries.
Mhm.
You
Yes.
got to create boundaries, and a lot of the times, parents get lazy,
Yeah.
and they did put a boundary here. You need to turn in your phone by 8 o'clock
Mhm.
or something like that. But then the child says, because kids are going to push those boundaries,
Yes,
right?
they will.
But the child says, well, but I'm just finishing up this last call. And you're like, all right, is it just going to be fine? Okay, all right, go ahead and keep the phone. And then the next week, they're like, oh, you're like, okay, your phone. Oh, well, I'm just doing this last bit of homework on my phone.
Mm.
Right? And you're like, okay, fine, we'll go. Now all of us, they are teaching you how to treat them.
Yes.
And that's part of the problem, is that
Woo.
we allow other people to dictate what we should do. And so motivation and discipline has to begin from a very early age. You cannot be a lazy parent. You
No.
cannot let kids just, oh, well, I don't feel like doing this. I don't feel like doing that, because if everything that you let them get away with, you have fed that baby, You have nurtured that baby, and when they are 16 years old and they're saying, I don't want to do this, and they're acting like that same baby, don't try to send them off anywhere. You need to start doing some soul searching within yourself and take responsibility of your inability to be able to set boundaries. And you know what it is people ain't set boundaries for themselves. That's why they know how to set boundaries for other people.
Absolutely. Oh, parents. I know she stepped on some feet, some toes. I heard some stuff crunching. She was like, I'm gonna step all over this right here. But parents, y'all better listen. Not just parents, like that relates to people in general, right? It's in
Absolutely.
general. But we
general.
definitely see it so much with parents and their children and it's so true. Like they will teach you how to treat them and how to
Yeah.
talk to them. And not from a good perspective, right?
Not at all.
Not
Not at
from
all.
that perspective where we say, oh, you want to teach people how to treat you. No, this is a different type of treating people, right? When kids do that to their parents. So we want to be very mindful, and give people opportunities to form discipline in their lives in the right way. In the
Absolutely.
right way.
Absolutely.
All right. So where are we now? We're at empathy.
Empathy, yes. Oh,
That's that fourth pillar. When you're building your home, empathy is the ability to understand and relate with the emotions of others and yourself. So many people say they are empathetic, and they're just really not. So let's talk about empathy. Empathy, like where does empathy derive from? Because I feel like empathy is truly something that's innate. Like you cannot learn it. It has to be within you. You have to be born to be empathetic. But let's hear your perspective on empathy.
So, empathy is something that we all have the ability to do, but what has happened is that society has conditioned us to rely more on logic and reasoning than heart.
Ooh.
And so we have become, so for instance, if someone passes away, you immediately hear someone say, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. My condolences for your loss. And that's not empathy whatsoever. But society, Stephanie, as I was writing a book and, my grandmother passed away. And I remember, just going in the card section, looking at some different cards. And I realized there's no cards that says with deepest empathy.
Right.
Everything is sympathy. Sympathy. So there's a conditioning that has happened. Even right now, if you go in the store, you don't see any cards that says with deepest empathy. And empathy says that I am able to put myself in your shoes. And even if I have not experienced exactly what you have experienced, I can inquire of what that may feel like. And then I can think about a memory in my brain, in the subconscious mind, that can relate to what you just said. So I can feel the emotion with you, right? And a lot of people, they don't want to, because they're struggling with so much of the things that they have going on. They're like, look, I'm sorry to hear that, move on. Like I don't want to sit with you. Like I got my own stuff going on.
Yeah.
You don't know what I got to deal with, and to sit here and talk to you, I don't have that time.
Yeah.
So I'm really sorry to hear that, and I'm going to send you the prayer emojis.
Look, I'm busting out laughing because I'm guilty. The prayer hands, they get used.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Okay. But Okay, I gotta get back on track. That was funny. I'm sorry.
And I found out that those prayer hands is really giving a high five. It's not even prayer hands, it's a high five.
You lie.
I promise you. It's a high five. It's not even prayer hands, it's a high five. So condolences, high five.
Stop it. It. Okay, now you just messed up my whole strategy for when somebody
I'm,
goes
I'm,
through something.
I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the truth.
Oh God. Okay. Whew. Okay, that right there was hilarious, Joanna. But whew, all right. So when we think about now, we've built these 4
Yeah,
pillars in the home. We have self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation and discipline, and empathy.
yeah.
What's that final pillar? And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that you address as far as like homework that you give, because I love the homework that you give in here and
Yes.
the testimonials that you share from people that actually went through the training. So let's talk a little bit about that last pillar.
Yeah. So the next pillar, right? Because the next pillar is now that you understand yourself, right? And you understand how you're showing up, you're learning how to be more mindful. Emotional intelligence forces you to, what I love to say, pump your brakes.
Yeah.
Like ease up off of them. Just ease up off the brakes a little bit, right?
Mm.
And so when you can learn to pump your brakes and give people grace and
Yes.
give people space, then now you are like approved in a sense to be able to socially be able to interact with other people. And so that's actually going to be the next book that I'm going to be writing, because this book is about getting self understanding, self regulating, self disciplining, self having empathy for self. And then once you have gotten self together, now it's important for you to be able to have the social skills, which
Mhm.
is lacking so much because of technology, right?
Yes.
But have the social skills and relationship management that is needed for you to be able to engage with other people in a healthier way.
Yes. Ooh. Well, we can't wait for that second book because my God. Let me ask you this before we move on. You talk about transferring emotions and converting
Mm.
emotions. Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. So with transferring emotions, you said misery loves company. And oh, how true that is. We want to transfer our emotions on other people. You can transfer joy and you can transfer pain,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So where does that come from? When we think about transferring those emotions, where does that come from, especially when we think about it from an emotional intelligence perspective?
So the thing about emotions is emotions cannot be destroyed.
Right.
So, so some people think, I love it because some people like, I forgave, they write people name down on a piece of paper. Like, I forgive, I forgive, I forgive, I
Yeah.
forgive, I forgive. And then
Yeah.
when they see that person, their words get choked. They can't
Yes.
even talk to the person, right? That means no, because what you did was you just tried to destroy your emotion, and we're energy sources. You
Yes.
cannot destroy an energy source, right?
Mm.
But what you can do is you can transfer it or you can convert it. So, for instance, I'll take something as simple as anger, right?
Mhm.
Someone can look at anger and say, you know what? Someone can say, you'll never do anything in life. You'll always be this way. You're never going to turn out right. And then someone else can look at that anger and say, you know what, just because you said I'll never do it, I will do it. Just
Yes.
because you said I'll never be anything, I'm going to go after it. And so what happens is that anger turns into power.
Mm.
So now there's a conversion, and it's just like having a conversation. If you've ever had like a difficult conversation with, and I do this in my classes all the time, when you got to have a challenging conversation with someone, maybe before you have that conversation, you're experiencing fear, you're experiencing vulnerability. And by the way, in my book, I also have an emotion diagram.
Yes.
It gives vocabulary versus the same vocabulary that we normally use: happy, sad, mad. We use those things, not realizing that our vocabulary should have been nuanced throughout these years, because anger, there's a big difference between someone angering you and you being disappointed.
Absolutely.
Very, very different, very different. And so I just encourage people that emotions, and yeah, there, there it is.
Yeah, the emote son vocabulary.
Absolutely. And the beautiful part is, if you are going into a conversation and you're feeling vulnerable and victimized and lonely and unsure, if you look at the end of that fear section, it's
Mhm.
going to say something like love, right? Because what ends up happening is, when you decide to have that difficult conversation when you were in fear,
Mhm.
all of a sudden, when you're speaking to that person or you're reading that letter, there's a conversion that takes place with the energy. And now all of a sudden, as you're having the conversation, you sitting up a little bit more. All of a sudden, you're feeling like, oh my, okay, I got this. Okay, I can do this. And so why? Because perfect love casts out all fear. And so
Yes.
what ends up happening is, as you have that fear, it's squeezing out the fear, and the love just comes bursting through. And that's love towards yourself. That's the beautiful part about it, is that
Yes.
is love towards yourself. And what will end up happening is, that is going to drive you to be able to have more difficult conversations, because of the beauty that comes out of those fearful places.
Yes. Ooh, that was so good. That was so good, Joanna. Oh gosh. So all right, as we prepare to wrap up, let's just talk about a little bit about some of what you find to be the benefits, right? The benefits of emotional intelligence in a nutshell.
Yeah.
How does it benefit a person to be emotionally intelligent?
I love the quote by Maya Angelou, and she said, people may forget what you said, people may forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. At the end of the day, what do you want? How do you want your legacy to look?
Mhm.
What are some of the things that you are going to pass on to your children without realizing it, right? And so you can focus on getting money, you can focus on getting cars, you can focus on all of these different things, but you can't take them anywhere. And at the end of the day, no one is at a funeral saying, "Oh my gosh, Stephanie, you never." She had the biggest house, the biggest cars. She had the greatest shoes. Nobody is saying that. You want people to remember you by saying, "Stephanie, she had a heart of gold.
Yeah.
She was a great mother. She would give you the shirt off of her back." And if we want that type of legacy, we have to focus on doing the work that creates that lasting imprint, that people will never forget you. Never. I don't care if you died 30 years ago. We're still talking about people in the Bible from over 2,000 years ago,
That's
because of
right.
the work and the impression that they left on us. So what legacy do you want to leave? And that
Mm.
is what emotional intelligence is all about.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you for the dedication, the level of research that you have done into this topic, which is emotional intelligence was kind of coined by was Daniel Goleman, right?
Yes. Yes.
And the work that you have put into this, not just for yourself, but for others, like I applaud you because this is not easy work. It is not the work that people want to do. Everybody wants to do the fun and easy stuff, but you challenge yourself.
Yeah.
to do the hard work, the difficult work in yourself first, right? So that you can then help other people to do it and do it successfully so that they can be better leaders, they can be better employees, they can be better mothers and fathers and siblings and, just people out
Yeah.
in the world. And
Yes.
so I just applaud you because this book and the work that you put into it and the homework assignments and the testimonies that you share really will help people to build the right foundation for their home, their internal home, right? The heart space of their home. And so I want to thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of the show tonight. I want you to share with the viewers that are watching and those who will watch on the replay, as well as those who will listen on the audio. Um, Tell them how they can find you, how they can reach out to you, whether through social media, a website. Tell the audience how to reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to begin doing the hard work of the heart, and it's Stephanie, it's like you look at the gym and you say, I want this sexy body, so I go to the gym, right? But nobody really like going to the gym, right?
Right. Woo. Yes.
So they want the results without doing the work. And
Mm.
I just want to say to anybody that is watching, you are worth the work.
Yes.
You are worth the work.
Mm.
Your children is worth the work. Your children's children is worth the work. Your marriage is worth the work. And so you may not be able to instantaneously see results, right? Because Jim, it takes time. It's the same thing in your mind. It's going to take time. But when you begin to do the work, my God, the beauty that comes out of the pressure is going to create the diamond that God has created you to be. And so, if you are interested, you can go right to my website, heartworkprecision.com. Heartwork, HEART, workprecision.com. That has all of my handles on it. That is where you can purchase the book. And I just encourage you and don't be stingy with this information.
That's right.
Pass this on. And I'm just one of the authors that Stephanie has brought on her show, but also support each other, right? Look at some of the other wealth of information that Stephanie has brought on her show, because one of the reasons why we perish is for lack of knowledge.
Yes, Lord.
So please watch some of the other episodes so that way you'll be able to glean from other content that God has laid on Stephanie's heart to put out there. So heartworkprecision.com. And Stephanie, thank you so much for allowing me to be a guest on Storytime.
Thank you, Joanna. I love you. I appreciate you. I value you. I thank you. I thank you. And I saw Chris's comment. She said, wow, thanks for this powerful conversation. And it absolutely was powerful. It was informative. It was one of those conversations that makes you sit back and say, I got a lot of work still left to do.
Right.
Right. But I am worth the work.
Yes.
I am worth the work. And I have to do what is necessary to be able to be the person and show up as the person that I was created to be, because God has created each and every one of us in his image, and he's created us to be a certain representation here in the earth. And I always strive to be that representation here in the earth. So Renee, thank you. Thank you. She says, amazing conversation. Thank you all for those who joined us live. Hopefully you shared it out.
Yes.
If not, share it out on your platform so people can watch it later on the replay. Direct them to our YouTube channel. It's Storytime with Stephanie. We want to be able to grow this platform. We started out on Facebook. This is our 7th season. We started out on Facebook. This is the first season that we did on YouTube. So we're growing this platform, and we want to continue to see it grow because, again, I know God put me on this earth to be able to have a platform for other people to share their stories, because stories truly do heal. They heal.
Yes, they do.
They transform. They change lives. And so I love to be able to have this opportunity to talk with people like Joanna and other authors who have gone out and said, I am going to share from my knowledge, from my expertise, from my experiences, so that other people's lives can be changed. And so I honor you for that, Joanna. I thank you all for just listening in, for tuning in, for watching, and for sharing out, and for subscribing.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you all. So thank you so much, Joanna.
You're so welcome. It was an absolute pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. I'll be seeing you soon. So, oh wow, what a powerful conversation that was with Joanna Avin, the author of HeartWork of the Soul, your training guide to emotional wellness. You all have got to go out and get this book, because you know what? You are worth the work. Have a great evening. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Storytime with Stephanie. If you're an independent author and you'd like to be a guest on our show, email us at info@stephanieouten.com with your name, the name of your book, and why you believe you should be a part of our show. Also, if you'd like to support our show by sponsoring an ad, you too can email us at info@stephanieouten.com for more information. We'll see you next time.